In this episode of Weird and Surprising Facts, you discover where the world's first roller coaster was erected and the surprising, rather strange reason why, how an 11-year-old boy accidentally invented ice pops, or as we know them today, popsicles, why we might believe that those bright shiny apples in your food store are nice and fresh. Well, in fact, they might be a year old. The real color of octopus blood and why it is the color it is, and why human blood is red. And if you have trouble sleeping, well, maybe you would like to be a snail. All of these weird and surprising facts, well, they're straight ahead, along with ever so much more. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Weird and Surprising Facts. Who is this show for? This show is for you if you like strange, unusual facts you can share with family and friends. Well, they're going to think you are a fact genius. I am your host, Stephen Carter, and I am also a fan of all things odd, strange, and weird. Find other podcasts at stressreliefradio.com, stressreliefradio.com. Speaking of weird and strange, how weird and strange is the legend of the Loch Ness Monster? Going back in time to May of 1933, we have the first sighting of the Loch Ness Monster reported. Yes, 1933. That's when Nessie first appeared. Yes, that's when the myth, the legend, the perhaps facts, we don't know, but that was the beginning of the Loch Ness Monster. The story was born on May 2, 1933, when the newspaper Inverness Courier carried an account of a local couple who claimed to have seen an enormous animal rolling and plunging on the surface of Loch Ness, and that was the genesis of what was to be the Loch Ness Monster. That was 90 years ago. As far as we know, Nessie is still going strong. Have you ever been on a roller coaster? I'll bet you have. The roller coaster was born in the 1880s when hosiery businessman Lamarcus Thompson, well, he got the idea to invent this huge attraction, which he ultimately arranged to be constructed in Coney Island, New York. Why? Because Thompson hated the fact that so many Americans were tempted by hedonistic places like saloons and houses of ill repute. In his mind, Coney Island was one of the most immoral places he could think of, and that's why he chose to build the first roller coaster to give New Yorkers some good, clean fun away from, well, those hedonistic places. In the heat of the summer, have you ever enjoyed ice pops on a stick? Those refreshing, good-tasting ice pops were invented by an 11-year-old, and it was an accident. In 1905, an 11-year-old young lad named Frank Epperson left soda powder and water outside overnight, and there was a wooden stirring stick in that cup. The night was cold. As a result, the mixture had frozen in the chilly weather. While the tasty treat was invented by accident, this young lad knew something special was born. He named this frozen delight the popsicle. He sold this tasty treat around his neighborhood, and he sold it in a nearby amusement park. He even patented the recipe. This is an 11-year-old lad now. Years later, he changed the name to Popsicle because that's what his kids called their pop concoction. So the next time you partake in one of these tasty treats, We can thank that young 11-year-old budding entrepreneur, Frank Epperson. If you spend a lot of time in the air, traveling by airplane on long-haul flights, you may have noticed that food just doesn't seem to taste as good during those in-flight meals. What you may not realize is that you lose up to 30% of your taste buds during airplane flights. Do you have trouble sleeping? If so, you might, want to come back in your next life as a snail. Why? Because snails can sleep up to 3 years at a time. Many people believe all blood is red regardless of what species the blood is coming from. In fact, octopus blood is blue. Why? Because it is copper-based. Octopus blood is blue because it's copper-based. It gives new meaning to the term blue bloods. So why is human blood red? Human blood is red because it is iron-based. How much energy is used when we yell? Well, it turns out not a lot. If you yelled for 8 years, 7 months, and 6 days, you would have produced enough sound energy to heat 1 cup of coffee. As a young person, you may have participated in frog jumping contests at various fairs. Many species of frogs can, of course, jump quite a distance, but frogs have nothing on fleas. A flea can jump 350 times its body length. 350 times its body length. If we had the same ability as a human being, well, we would be jumping the length of a football field. When you go into the supermarket, I'm sure you've seen those bright, shiny apples on display. Those apples look fresh and tasty. But the truth is, apples are usually picked between August and September. They're covered in wax, hot air dried, and they are put into cold storage. There they sit until it's time for the store to put them on display. That will typically be 6 to 12 months after they were first picked. Do you hum? Many people do. I certainly hum on a regular basis. But here's a rather odd fact. It is impossible to hum while holding your nose. I'll bet you just had to go with that. Why is it impossible to hum when you're holding your nose? Because when you hum, the air escapes through your nose to create the sound, and of course, it cannot do that. When you hold your nose, the air simply can't escape. In an earlier episode, we talked about the extraordinary length of time sloths can hold their breath. Here is another fun fact about sloths. They have more neck bones than giraffes. A giraffe has 7 vertebrae, a sloth has 10. And finally, one little safety fact. If you ever find yourself in quicksand, raise your legs slowly while lying on your back. When you do this in quicksand, experts tell us you cannot sink into that quicksand. That is what is alleged. As for me, I think I'll just stay clear of quicksand so I don't have to put this little weird piece of information to the test. If you're not following the Weird and Surprising Facts podcast, this is a perfect time to do that. You can follow or subscribe. Both terms are used by various applications. Follow or subscribe through your favorite app. When you do that, you will never miss an episode. If you would like to listen to previous episodes of Weird and Surprising Facts, visit us at weirdandsurprisingfacts.com. cartermethod@gmail.com. To reach me to comment on any of these stories or for any reason, email me at cartermethod@gmail.com, cartermethod@gmail.com. Until our next visit together, I wish for you and your loved ones blessings in abundance.